Imagine sailing through the South China Sea, a vast stretch of blue water dotted with reefs, atolls, and tiny islands. But what if I told you that many of those islands weren't even there a decade ago? What if they were built, poured, dredged, and sculpted by human hands, then armed to the teeth? That's exactly what China has done. And today, those artificial island fortresses are at the center of one of the most dangerous flashpoints on Earth. Let's break this down. The South China Sea isn't just another ocean. It's a superhighway of trade. 1/3 of the world's shipping passes through it every year. Trillions of dollars of oil, gas, and goods. Beneath its waves lie rich fishing grounds and massive untapped oil and gas reserves. In other words, whoever controls the South China Sea controls a vital artery of the global economy, and China has claimed nearly all of it. Using what's called the 9-dash line, Beijing insists that most of the sea, waters thousands of miles from its mainland, are historically Chinese territory. The problem? Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and even Taiwan all have competing claims. The region is basically a geopolitical powder keg. So what did China do? Starting in the mid-2010s, it began dredging sand and rock onto reefs and shoals in the Spratly and Paracel Islands, creating brand new land out of the sea. Within just a few years, these tiny specks of reef had transformed into massive artificial islands. And they weren't just beaches and palm trees. They came with runways, radar domes, deep harbors, and hardened bunkers. Fighter jets, long-range missiles, anti-ship batteries, all placed right in the middle of the South China Sea. Think about that for a second. China essentially built unsinkable aircraft carriers, fortresses of concrete and sand spread across the sea. From them, it can project power over one of the busiest shipping routes in the world. Now officially, China said these islands were for civilian purposes. You know, search and rescue, weather stations, navigation. But the satellite photos don't lie. Those civilian facilities came with anti-aircraft weapons and bomber-ready runways. The transformation was so obvious that even US officials called it a classic case of militarization. But here's where it gets messy. Under international law, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, artificial islands don't create new territorial waters. You can build them, sure, but they don't give you sovereignty. In 2016, an international tribunal flat-out rejected China's sweeping claims. Beijing's response to shrug and keep building, and that's the heart of the issue. China doesn't just see these islands as outposts. It sees them as stepping stones to dominate the sea itself. Fishing vessels escorted by Chinese Coast Guard ships now patrol waters near other countries' shores. Oil exploration rigs pop up in contested zones, and every time another nation pushes back, those fortified islands loom in the background, a reminder of who holds the high ground. The US and its allies haven't ignored this. American warships regularly conduct freedom of navigation patrols, sailing right through waters China claims, just to prove they don't accept Beijing's control. Sometimes these patrols come within just a few miles of the islands, sparking tense standoffs with Chinese naval vessels. One wrong move, one miscalculation could spiral into a crisis. And here's my take. These artificial islands might be some of the most strategic pieces of real estate on the planet, but they're also some of the most fragile. Rising seas and typhoons threaten to erode them. And in a serious conflict, they'd be prime targets, sitting ducks in the middle of the ocean. But until then, they serve a purpose. They extend China's military reach and send a clear message. This is our sea. The bigger question is, what does this mean for the future? Will other nations back down, or will they dig in? And if push comes to shove, would the world really risk a war over artificial islands made of sand and concrete? One thing is certain. The South China Sea is no longer just about trade routes or fishing rights. It's about power. Who has it, who wants it, and who's willing to fight for it? So what do you think? Are China's artificial islands unstoppable symbols of dominance or fragile fortresses that could crumble under pressure? Let me know in the comments, Dark Detectives. And don't forget to like and subscribe, it helps a lot. Especially since the YouTube algorithm doesn't exactly love pushing this kind of history and geopolitics content.